And we've actually really embraced this concept of design doing. And again, this all goes back to my original concept, moving from inspired by to inspired to. Well, here are the 8 mindsets that we find, and the literature shows this, as you can see here on the slide, that are the most written about in the academic literature about this mindset. And the first piece is creativity. So we'll talk a lot more about creativity as we go, because I think that's a deeper subject. But understand that creativity isn't just something you get, right? Creativity is preceded by inspiration. You've got to be inspired by something to become creative. And we'll talk a lot about that in 2 weeks, because I really want to drill down on that sense. The next is empathy. We touched a lot on this. There's 2 types of empathy. There's cognitive empathy and there's emotional empathy. Cognitive empathy is when we say, you know, I've thought about it and I think this is how that person feels. Whereas emotional empathy is really putting yourself in someone's shoes. So in the Oakland A's case, for those of you that read it, the point being is that it's easy for us to sit in the front office and say, I think our fans feel this way. But unless we go and talk to our fans in the stadium, and more importantly, fans that aren't in the stadium, and understand why they're not there, it's only then that we begin to build this emotional empathy and understand that the drivers are probably outside of baseball by itself. The next mindset piece is optimism. So we like to think of ourselves as yes and thinkers. Clark jokes that he's going to put that on my tombstone, yes and. But when we're doing corporate engagements, every meeting we hear yeah but, and I've jokingly referred to them as the yabbits. It's so easy to say yeah but and then interject yourself. And think of how difficult it is when you hear someone share something in a meeting or even in a group as you're working on a project. And you say, wow, you know, that's not exactly what I thought about. How do I steer the conversation back to where I want it to go? Yes, but actually we use yes and, because by nature we're optimists. And it was funny, Chris and Jessica, the leader of Chris and Jessica's organization, when we were talking yesterday, he said to me, boy, you design thinkers are just such an optimistic bunch. And it's in times like this when we lean very heavily on our optimism. Next is the sense of iteration. So failure is not a word, right? You only fail when you quit. And we learned a long time ago in one of our workshops that Google actually has an award called the Curious Penguin, which is given to the biggest failure every year. But again, even something as ubiquitous as Google Glass, right? That was an epic failure, some may argue. I guarantee you the human-centered learnings and the engineering learnings from that project have been socialized within the organization, and we will see them reemerge later. So just as an example, my brother-in-law works at Facebook, and he works on the, like literally they're like putting things on people's heads. So like what you think will go on the computer screen. And if he's designing that, can there be a linkage between what we do today, typing on a keyboard, what Google Glass learned by creating this device that's meant to just show us the world in front of our eyes, and then connect that to this deeper technology? Totally exists. Collaboration, this is why we work in teams in this class, and this is why we say, you know, no designer is an island. We all learn from the yes and of each other. Visualization, so at IDEO, for example, they always say don't come to a meeting without a prototype, and we feel very similarly. Clark is constantly sketching out ideas, and he and I have, you know, numerous napkin, back of the napkin drawings about new ideas and new client approaches that we've taken. One way that I use visualization, for example, is I create Sharpie decks. So when I'm pitching a client, before I even put together a PDF, I literally sketch out the deck in Sharpie marker on paper. And it gives it this iterative sense that, like, yeah, what you are talking about, it can be yes-anded. When it's in a PowerPoint, it's more likely to get the yes but treatment. Next is this Gestalt view of critical thinking. And I think this is a big part of design thinking that's left out. And we'll link this throughout the course, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But I truly believe design thinking is not just a rote process of Post-its on the wall, but rather it's a deeper form of critical thinking. And we'll get into some of the tools around that as we go. And then finally, ambiguity, or comfort with ambiguity. We all, you know, again, Chris and Jessica are fantastic examples of someone embracing ambiguity. they just reached out and they said, hey, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to watch somebody else's class because I can only learn. It can only make me better. And whether I'm uncomfortable or not going into this new setting, I'll have greater confidence because of this experience that I had. So if there's one thing design thinkers do really well, it's simply that they just, when given an opportunity, we say yes.